YouTube. Welcome to Jackie's Literary Corner. I am Jackie, and it's time for an update. So I don't know when I'm going to do my wrap-up for July, because the month is almost over. I'm still reading, because I read all the way up until the end of the month. It will kind of depend on my work schedule, because I always make sure I film on days I'm off from work. I mean, I do have several days in a row off right now, starting today. But like I said, I'm still reading, so I don't know if I'll do a wrap up. I mean, I could do a wrap up on the 30th, because they go back to work I have a work day on the 31st. But then again, also they could call me. Knock on wood that they don't need me to come in. But you never know. So I'm still trying to decide if I want to do a wrap up. But for now, that's just an update. Let's talk about what I'm currently reading. So I am currently reading, first of all, one of the books I'm currently reading is the other book I got from the library, Nicked, by M.T. Anderson. And I remember last time I talked about this book on the book haul, I was not sure who I heard about this book from, but actually I do think it was Greg from Supposedly Fun had talked about this book. Like, I think he was reading around Christmas time, or like maybe he had been talking about what he'd been reading lately, and this is the book he read around Christmas or during winter time, because this is definitely because of what it's about, it feels more like it should be a winter book, or a Christmas book, because it is about a monk who he has a dream about Saint Nicholas, who inspired Santa Claus from mythology, and his master tells him that, this must be a message from St. Nicholas, like, he's not happy, you need to dig up his bones and bring him here. And also at the time, the other monks are very sick, and St. Nicholas is known as someone who can heal people. So they decide to hire a thief. And this thief was already approached by Venice, but the abbey offers to pay him double. So he's like, okay, sure. So they go and they bring this guy who's known as the Factor with them, and our monk is set to keep an eye on the thief, make sure he is genuine, and he will bring the body back and not betray them. And our monk is not having a great time on this boat. They're giving him a hard time. They won't let him help because he doesn't want to just sit there and twiddle his thumbs, because of course they see you don't look like someone who can know about sailing or help us out. But like I say, he just wants to help. And when I was reading this part, when this is making me actually think of Ship of Magic by Robin Hobb, because one of the characters in that one, this young boy, he is being forced to leave the priesthood and to sail with his father because he has the blood of the Vestrit family, and so he has the connection with the magic ship, and his father knows he needs to bring someone. He's not going to bring his aunt, because they don't, and the kid's not happy. He is miserable, and he is bullied on this ship, and no one thinks him capable, and they're just disappointed because he's not a tough, strong sailor. He doesn't want to do any of the activities that the sailors do. He thinks they're crass, and he's just a very moral person, just a good person, doesn't like violence or gambling, and he thinks they're very sinful and all that. And in this case, our monk isn't really judging this crew, but he's not comfortable with them, and he's lived in the abbey his whole life. But so yeah, he is not exactly capable of doing this kind of stuff. And he also is not sure if he believes in this, like if he believes that's what his dream was telling him, why he had this dream about Saint Nicholas. But of course, he can't doubt. He's not allowed to doubt him. He has to have complete faith in this mission. And so they're in the middle of storm. They're sailing, and they meet storms and rough seas and not a lot of food. And Venice sends a crew to track them down and try to convince the thief to work for them instead. And at one point, the Factor and the monk, because the monk saw him talking to this woman, the Factor is suspicious of the thief's behavior. There's an alliance between our monk and the Factor because they don't trust the thief. But at the same time, when they were attacked by the Venetian crew, our monk saved the thief's life. So there's kind of there's respect there. But there's still tension between this threesome. But I am enjoying this so far. But like I said, this is probably not the season for this kind of book. But I mean, you can read books whenever. So I'm reading this now. And I saw it at the library, so I was inspired to get it. But yeah, this is really good. I'm enjoying it. And then also, I did finish this one, Glorious Exploits. I enjoyed this as well, and it did kind of inspire me to check out kind of put Medea on the brain, another witch from mythology, Greek mythology, because that's the play that they're doing in this story. One of the plays that they're doing. They're also doing Trojan women. They're doing 2 Euripides plays. And so it definitely, it got me to want to get back into ancient history, because I have had somewhat a vague interest in ancient history and mythology and stuff, but I've never seriously pursued it because I wasn't sure if I could, because I thought it might be too hard for me to read. And but I did read, when I took that British literature class a few years ago, it did get me interested in epic poetry, and that is part of ancient literature, epic poetry like the Iliad and the Odyssey. Although I did read a prose version of the Odyssey, which helped a lot. I'm also listening to the podcast created by Jean from Jean's Bookish Thoughts. She has That's Ancient History podcast. I'm listening to that currently. Although even though I started with season 1, I just finished season 1, and I was gonna start season 2, but for some reason, maybe the episodes didn't download or whatever, it's not. Season 2 and 3 and 4 and 5 are not available to me. So I kept trying to find it, but on my device, but I couldn't get it. So which is kind of annoying because I wanted to listen to the whole podcast. But I have listened to some of her season 6 episodes, which I really, and there are some of those retellings that definitely got my attention. I mean, I've read Circe, and I did attempt to read the Song of Achilles, but I just wasn't in the mood. That book wasn't for me. But yeah, this was really fun. Although and maybe it's because the author is part Irish on his mother's side, but I was still a little. I keep thinking there's a reason why the author did the Irish inflections for the characters' dialogue, but I didn't. I mean, maybe it was a way to make it more accessible. And like I said, the author is half Irish, half Libyan. So I was confused why he included he went that route. I mean, or maybe it's just for more easier for him, or maybe to make it more accessible. I don't know, but I keep feeling there's gotta be some reason. But yeah, so this was really good. It's funny, but it has dark undertones. It's also very sad towards the end, towards the climax. But this was good. So those are my library books. I do want to get back into this one, Mad Ship, which is the sequel to Ship of Magic, because it's only a 3-book series. Granted, these are long books, but I keep continuing to try to finish series, especially if a trilogy, within the year, and not taking forever to read it. I still have not read finished the All Souls. Of course, since then there has been other books, but I haven't finished the original trilogy of that one. I want to this autumn though and read the Book of Life. And then there's other trilogies, but so far I've only finished like maybe one or two. Either last year or this year, but I think it was this year. Yeah, it was this year because I think it was back in January when I read the final book of the Lycanus trilogy. So I still continue to keep trying to change that and not read series or at least trilogies within several years. Like I don't want to have two huge time gaps between each book. So I want to start this one. And, I feel like the summer is the perfect time to read this series because it's, I feel like Seafaring would be perfect for summer reading because, during the summertime, that's when you go to the beach or the pool. So, and I brought the first book with me to the pool back in June. So, and actually my mom, she asked me, if I was kind of hinted or gave me the impression that we could potentially go to the pool. When she's done with her online class that she's taking. So I want to start reading this one again. As for other current reads, I did come back to the Iliad, but I don't have a lot to report on this one. I brought it with me to work, but of course I have limited time during breaks to read this, so I only read a little bit of it, a page or two. And like I said, I've been very inspired to get back into ancient literature or books that are about that time period. So I did read the Oedipus Cycle by Sophocles. And the only thing, and I'm going to talk about this more with my wrap up, the only thing is it felt a little incomplete. Like I'm missing stuff. But I also am kind of reading random, whatever I can find of mythology. So I'm not going in any particular order. So there's probably stuff that is not in the, that Sophocles would assume you already know from the when you read his plays. So I also intended for my next set of plays to pick up this Aristophanes, some of his plays. I think Sophocles I think is drama, and then I think Aristophanes is comedy, which is funny. When I looked up this book on Goodreads, it says author unknown. But it's like Aristophanes is the author of these plays. So author is not unknown, the author is known. It's just you assume that's part of the title. Which, is a title of this copy, but this is the author's name. But anyway, so this includes Lysistrata, Archarians in the Clouds. Okay, so that's the one I don't know how to say. I might need to ask someone or do a Google how you say this word. I've been trying to avoid not using Google and just being careful how much, not that I use it that much, but, in the AI mode, I don't I don't want to rely on it. And then I'm thinking a lot about how, it knows everything about you, which is a little creepy. But anyway, so I wanted to do this because what I'm thinking is doing the plays, starting with some of the shorter works like plays and stuff of ancient literature could potentially help get me started into those first. But like I said, I am reading the Iliad on and off because I've already read the Odyssey, so. Which, by the way, I think Aristophanes is not just, he's not just comedy, he's satire. Because I think, in the introduction, it talks about his relationship with these other writers. And he kind of does satire of the politicians of the time period. Another book that I've been meaning to pick up, that I want to pick up soon, is The Lives of the Caesars by Suetonius. And what I've been told is that this is very much like a gossip column, and it says that in the introduction. Now, in the introduction, in the part of this that, what is it called? Let me see. Oh, yeah, it's the introduction. That, like, I do get the impression that Suetonius, his method of his writing style doesn't include everything, not all the facts. So I do want to read other ones. Like, I can't remember who the other guys that they mentioned. There's another historian they mentioned in here that's, let's see. What is his name? Let me see. I'm trying to find, there's another historian that they mentioned of the time period that probably is another one that, let's see. There's Tacitus. Plutarch. He's another one they talk about a lot and compare Suetonius to Plutarch. So I did put on my wish list on like Amazon and Thrift Books that I want to get one of his volumes on the lives. Now I guess his is longer. You know, he has a lot more written down, so but I finally want to get to this because I'm still on the, want to learn more about Rome and Roman history because I think Rome is so fascinating. Now, I did struggle with earlier this year reading that nonfiction book, history book by Tom Holland, not the actor, but the historian, just to let you know, just to clarify. He wrote, Rome, a book on the history of Rome and warfare and all that, and how the whole empire grew and its development and what potentially caused it to fall. And some parts of that were hard for me to get into. That weren't as interesting to me, at least. But yeah, this is another. So I did read most of that book. And I don't mean to get to this one because I do feel like once I get into this, it can be really fun and entertaining and interesting. But I feel like, though, is this nonfiction or fiction? I'm very confused on that part. If this would be considered nonfiction. Or is it fiction? Which I'll have to look what people put this under. Like, if they put it under, the category of fiction or nonfiction on Goodreads, what shelf? Because I'm very confused by that. Because it seems like, I was thinking it's nonfiction, but the way it's talking about it makes me think it might be, that's debatable. And, like, it could be like it's like reading a tabloid almost. And that's debatable if that's true or not. I mean, it could be true, it's just exaggerated. But yeah, so okay, and then I'm also doing, I think I mentioned this last time, I'm doing a group read of Fire and Blood by George R. R. Martin. This is the book on the Targaryen family dynasty. I'm reading this with Larissa and her fiance Jacob. The good news is I don't feel pressure from them to get this read, even though, like, at the same time, there is a tiny sliver of pressure because I do know Larissa's listening to this on audiobook via Libby, so she might get through this faster than me. Unless she doesn't finish it by the time she has to return and she has to renew it. Or give it back to them, depending on... Because I don't know how popular this book is on Libby. But, as I said, I've talked about this before in that, when I last mentioned reading this last time and how this is kind of written like a history book, so it's not for everybody. Probably you have to be like a hardcore Game of Thrones fan probably to get to really to want to read this. But yeah, it's very like it's not a story. It's, telling of these events, which is interesting because obviously the series doesn't cover everything in this book. It only covers part of it, like up to a point. Like, but not even the first chunk of this book. Like, I'm not even up to what is covered on the show, because there is a bunch of family members before the people that are the characters in the show Fire House of the Dragon. I keep trying to remember who is the guy that dies in the first season. I'm trying to remember if I want to say it might be a Jaehaerys. So I don't know if it's Jaehaerys the first, or I think there's a second Jaehaerys. But yeah, that has happened to this family. And some members of the family are good rulers, some not so much. The current guy is pretty good. Pretty good ruler. There's some aspects of it, about his leadership that aren't ideal, but he's one of the best so far since Aegon the Conqueror. And that's Jaehaerys the First. But anyway, so it's really cool though. It's really cool learning about the Targaryens and their history. Like I said, I'm interested in this, but I know not everybody would, and I'm was worried about like Larissa and Jacob not being as interested, but they actually so far they are. They're really liking it. It is hard, like I said, it still remains to be hard to get into the characters because, like I said, it reads like a history book, so you don't really get to know the characters that much. But I do think you get a little bit, as I said last time. You do get to know them a little bit. But I did want to read a little bit more today, but we will see. Like I said, I think my mom I think she might have suggested about later today, this evening, going to the pool. So we will see. And I'm not bringing this book with me to the pool. Like, it's heavy. I mean, if this was the paperback version of it, if I did get the paperback version, then yeah, I might bring it with me. I would bring it, but potentially. And it was one of these things where I didn't want to, like, leave, because this is the one I bought, so I felt like, let me read it. I should read from this one. I mean, I didn't buy it off of Books A Million. I did buy it at BJ's Wholesale Club, but it still was not, not like $5. So, and that's how much a book like this would be, at the Gibbons bookshop, because that's a used bookstore. So I'm like, I'm going to read this version. We did meet baby Coriolanus, who was in House of the Dragon, the series, as an adult, a middle-aged man. So we did meet him when he's a baby, in which they talk about how one of the characters that one of our Targaryen family members crossed paths with and formed a relationship with, that character took off and left her, and so, but there's also something else that she did that kind of made them want to go after her and hunt her down, but they didn't find her. And Corlys, at one point, in her dream, this character's dream, she's a sailor, and her dream is to sail beyond the, farther than anyone in Westeros has gone before, beyond the narrow sea. And she does that. So I'm gonna, that's as much spoilers I'm gonna give you. This is as much spoilers I'm gonna go with this. And Corlys sees what might be her ship years later. So when he's an adult. But this is so cool. I think this is really cool. Like I said last time, I love when authors do this, when they treat their world like it's real, like it's a real place, and that they write, they create their own language, write histories, and expand it beyond the main book series. Like, I know that's hard to do, because not everybody can be like Tolkien and study languages and then create their own language. But it's impressive when authors do that. Like, I know with the Wheel of Time series, there is a book that came out recently that's like, there are books out there that I've seen that might be like kind of about the history of the world, or like of the world of the Wheel of Time and all that kind of stuff. So I wish more fantasy. There would be some other fantasy authors that would do this, but maybe it's better that there aren't, and there are so few fantasy authors that do this, because it makes it all the more special when they do this. I do feel like if they did a book box of this book, I could see them having really fun, like maybe putting dragons on the spine, kind of similar to that one, the Fourth Wing series, something like that, and have a maybe gold emboss on the book, and with a dragon on the on the naked hardback, maybe some artwork similar to this, but have it also on this, having, in a dragon, a Game of Thrones bookmark, House of Targaryen bookmark, I should say, and just like maybe a little model dragon that you can put on your desk or something, and all the accessories and stuff like that. Maybe a pen with a dragon on it, or like a pen that has a dragon scale instead of a quill, and like they can really have fun with this if they did a book box for this. Because I just like looking at them. I mean, I would love to have one, but Broken Binding. That would be I could see Broken Binding soon. I would love for Broken Binding to do something like that. Because it would look gorgeous. Like, I've seen, Mike from Mike Circle Reviews always does a book haul, and a lot of times he shows the Broken Binding books he's got that he was able to get, and that's the way I've seen them, and they're just beautiful. And I could see them doing one for House of the Dragon or Game of Thrones series. I think it'll be really cool looking. So that is how it's going right now. I was gonna do a books I'm thinking about for August video, but I'm gonna wait and just do that separate video. But that is my update for you guys. Would love to know, as always, what you're currently reading right now. Are you guys interested in ancient history, mythology and Greek mythology and stuff? I would love to know. I'd be curious about that if you are. And if you are, maybe you could help me out a little bit to figure out, Jean's podcast, she does ask people at the end of her podcast, people that she has on there, if they would recommend a book. So I have gotten ideas from them. And I think I might check out Stephen Fry's book, which he wrote a book about Greek mythology as well. I do have Edith Hamilton, I think her name is. I do have that book. And I know there are some people who have criticism of that book, but I'm gonna read it because I bought it, and I want to read it anyway. But anyway, and I might like it, even if you guys, but yeah. So if you guys are fans of Greek mythology, I'd love to hear about that, and if you have any recommendations for me, I can write that down. And I guess I will talk to you all later. And as always, I hope you're enjoying your reading. Bye!